we're going to transition to our next panel, which is on an active shooter prevention and response. And we're very happy and delighted to have two experts in the field. Dr. Ropel is the first one, a special agent at FBI, and also, of course, one of our own at USC, and Ralph Roselli, who also from the FBI Academy, but he is our internal expert at the USC Department of Public Safety, where he trains certainly with the rest of our folks, and LAPD, of course, that participates to our training programs. We're delighted to have both of them. Tom, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much. I'm in a government building. I had to move a little bit to get the lights to come back on. So my apologies there. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen here. I do have a few slides to show along with the presentation here. So first off, definitely honored to be here. This is something that to speak to the folks that are online here, definitely a highlight for me. So thank you so much for giving us the opportunity to present here. So a little bit about me. I've been with the FBI for about 21 years now. I've been working on the counterterrorism field, Joint Terrorism Task Force. I was both in the Atlanta field office of the FBI, and then I've been out here in Orange County for about the last 15 years. So my main field has been counterterrorism, and I'm also a member of the BAU, the Behavioral Analysis Unit, which those of you may know, the BAU is back in Quantico, Virginia. And they are basically in charge of looking at threat mitigation across the law enforcement community here in the United States. We do quite a bit of outreach and liaison with the local police departments, the colleges, universities, and public safety and whatnot. So what I'm here to talk about today, briefly for about 15 minutes, I have to share with you a little bit about active shooter from the FBI, from the BAU perspective. And what we want to talk about a little bit is prevention and response, and what that kind of looks like from the BAU perspective. I did type in a little bit earlier. I was the one that typed in the InfraGard, so quick plug for InfraGard. They can provide some amazing training. And as a matter of fact, InfraGard does provide training on active shooter, mass shooting events, and threat management and things like that. So definitely a good organization to be involved with if those of you who haven't already. So in starting out here, we have to ask active shooters, what do they look like? Who are they, right? Are the statistics, the research shows that an active shooter is a 36-year-old white male. Sometimes they have military experience. Sometimes they have mental health issues. They also have potentially drug addiction, alcohol, substance abuse issues. But in talking to the folks that are online here, what are we looking for? What if you have to figure out who an active shooter is, who a prospective active shooter is, do they look like a certain thing? And the answer is yes, no, and maybe, right? Here are some folks on the screen here who have been individuals involved with terrorist attacks, active shooting events across the United States over the past decade or so. The BAU has done a plethora of research over the past 15 to 20 years, looking at active shooting incidents, trying to come up with kind of a game plan, a persona of who these individuals would be. In 2020, a research product was put out. It's called our Phase 3 report, where we looked at 63 active shooters and then 63 persons of concern. What was a person of concern? We also call them a disrupted actor, someone who has moving on that pathway to violence, who was a prospective active shooter, who was caught and disrupted prior to that event happening, which is, for us, a perfect scenario. That's what, as a community, as law enforcement, as American citizens, that's what we want, is to stop someone before they move forward on that event. And that's what we're here to talk a little bit about today. So the question was asked, how do active shooters differ from individuals concerning behavior but do not commit mass violence? And once again, there's no specific playbook to who would conduct this type of an attack, or to give those of you on the call right now a blueprint for this is exactly what I need to look for someone who would move in this direction. It's not out there. However, what we have done within our research is we have looked at some demographics. We looked at an overview of those individuals who have moved forward and conducted these attacks. One thing we found is there's really no meaningful demographic between someone who has committed an active shooting event or someone who is moving in that direction. That's very important because as you see here, average age is about 36 years old. The race is a white. So white males is what we're looking at, like in their mid-30s. But with this said, this is what the statistics show. That doesn't mean that someone who is, I mean, we look at Monterey Park that just occurred recently. The gentleman was an elderly Asian male. If we had been looking just for a 36-year-old white male, that individual would have slipped through the cracks. So these are, like I said, basics from what we've seen from our statistical research. Some of the variables that we've identified. I'm not going to read through every point here on the slide. I'm just putting these up here for a point of reference for you to kind of understand what we're looking at when we have someone moving on that pathway to violence. They have stressors in their life. They may have some substance abuse, prior convictions, abusive behavior, some isolation, mental health diagnosis, maybe not. A lot of times what we hear from the community members are, well, if someone is moving in that direction of becoming an active shooter and moving towards mass violence, they must have a major mental health disorder. A lot of times, yes, but there are also times where individuals have never been diagnosed, and when they're looked at for mental health disorders, they're non-prevalent. So that is not always a great indicator. It's something to maybe be concerned about, and if someone does have those ideations or those the mental health issues, trying to assist them and get them into a program for some treatment and for some help, right? That's pretty obvious. Some of the stressors that we've seen with active shooters are about 1 out of 10 of them have had past criminal activity, past criminal a criminal record. One thing that was very prevalent is, as you can see here, from the humiliation, and we also can liken this to bullying. When we look at our high schools and our middle schools, I actually have 2 sons that are 15 and 12 years old, and I hear about it every day about how people are trying to humiliate them and others, and that bullying that takes place. And matter of fact, in both of my son's schools down here in Orange County this year, they have had incidents on campus where the police, Irvine Police Department and Tustin Police Department, have had to respond to individuals who we believe were potentially moving forward towards acting out in violence. So this is prevalent, this is real, this is out there. A lot of what we found is that humiliation or that bullying is a big part of it. And not just on a high school campus, thinking about in your workplace, wherever you're at right now, individuals that maybe feel like they've been humiliated in some form or fashion. Some of the stressors that we see that are prevalent. And once again, there's no difference between the people have actually committed the active shooting attack and that have been disrupted or on the way. Financial strain, maybe an injury, drug and alcohol, once again, mental health, bad job performance, alienation, rejection. Once again, these are indicators, things that we would like our community, those of you on the call right now, to keep an eye on. And if you do see individuals who have several checks here with these type of variables and stressors, it may be someone that you would want to attempt to get into some type of health, some type of health treatment, some type of care, and maybe even contact law enforcement to have the professionals come in to kind of take a look at the situation. Some of the concerning behaviors that our research has found, obviously violent media usage. Surprisingly, that's only at about 20%. We would have thought that would have been a lot higher. It is one of the things out there on the internet, as we found, and everybody knows this, is that certain chat rooms, and even on TikTok, there are things that are occurring that are pushing that violent agenda. And we see these individuals they're out there on these sites, in these chat rooms, that are getting motivated and getting persuaded to move in a certain direction. If you go on YouTube and you Google how to conduct a school shooting, believe it or not, there are videos that are actually out there today on YouTube that have not been pulled down, that there are young men that are basically giving instructions on how to commit a school attack. So it's a pretty scary situation out there for our youth. So I'm going to move in real quick before I pass it over to Sergeant Roselli. Identification of these individuals, whether that is in your workplace, whether that's with your children who are going to high school, college, junior high school, whatever that is looking at how to identify these individuals and what to do when you identify them. So first part is the recognition, figuring out who the person is that may be of concern. And then what do you do at that point? Do you call law enforcement? I will tell you, I've been intimately involved with several attack situations around the country. I was deployed to the Boston bombings. I was in Las Vegas for the Las Vegas shootings. I was the lead interrogator on the San Bernardino shootings. And one thing that I have found with all of these events and more is that there are people, what we call innocent bystanders, who are actually aware of the potential for this individual or individuals to commit violence, to kill innocent people. And what we found through and through is that these people do not come to law enforcement. A couple reasons why they don't. And you can think about this right now. Why would you not want to report to law enforcement about someone who was close to you that they were potentially going to commit violence? Number one, what if you're wrong? You don't want to get the feds or the local police involved with someone who you know closely that may be innocent. My plea to you would be, let the professionals determine whether or not they're innocent. We can take a look into it. We're not going to arrest somebody for something that they didn't do. Let us take a look at the situation and try to mitigate that threat, because really what it comes down to is safety of the community and ensuring that something like Monterey Park, something like San Bernardino doesn't happen in our community. Recognize and report. This is just a real quick situation that occurred out in the Midwest, where someone who was watching a young gentleman at a storage shed that took a lot longer to open up the storage shed than they should, decided, you know what, this is a little out of the ordinary. I'm going to call the local police on this. The police responded, and lo and behold, they found out that this teen was plotting to kill his family and bomb his school. So something simple like that. Real quick, I wanted to hit the pathway to violence. I'm sure several of you on the call have heard about this. The pathway to violence was developed in the late 90s, early 2000s. And what this shows, and this is kind of a blueprint for us as law enforcement, is we look at every individual who has moved towards an attack. What we have found, the research has shown this, and looking at every case, they initially have a grievance. They have something that they're upset about. And in the workplace, that could be a bad performance review. That could be a boss that they don't like. That could be some humiliation. Then they have an ideation. They have a feeling of wanting to do something violent. Then it moves into the research and planning. They get on Google. They get on TikTok. They get on some other chat room to talk about how they would conduct that attack. Then the preparation phase, they move into purchasing the materials, purchasing the weapon, the black powder for the pipe bombs, like in San Bernardino. Then the breach, the actual moving into the area of the attack, going onto the college campus, going into the Inland Regional Center in San Bernardino. Then the actual attack occurs. What's the time frame for this? This can be literally hours to years. We've seen this type of pathway to violence occur very briefly, very quickly, and we've also seen it happen over a several-year period. With that said, I'd like to stay on my time hack so I can give Sergeant Roselli his 15 minutes, and then we'll go into question and answers. But that is it for me. I will stop my share and turn it over to Sergeant Roselli. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you for inviting me. It's a great pleasure to be here, joining you. I am an alumni of the SCI and its previous forebearer, DCI, as well. So I feel home here with Price. I've been with USC for 25 years. I did have the great fortune of being selected to attend the FBI National Academy, where I was a member of Class 282. I am the department's expert for active shooter training, and really the development of our policy is a shared response. The threat assessment is a shared response, and this is kind of what I'm going to talk to you about today. Trying not to be too redundant with what Tom had to share, but really showing you how we do it at SC. So when we look at this topic of prevention and a response plan, we really break it down, our prevention aspect of it, into the threat assessment component, the emergency plans component, and then what we found to be very effective was customizing the run, hide, fight model of training for departments in their specific footprints. And of course, hand in hand with that would be the communication tools that we use. Part of the issue that we have here is that, you know, every 4 years, really every year, we have a high turnover rate. This is a college environment. So as soon as we get people acclimated and up to speed with what some of our plans are, our procedures, when we finally have the opportunity to engage them, they're ready to move on to something else, and we're starting over again. So trying to be succinct, trying to find ways that are engaging, recognizing that we don't want to re-traumatize anybody. We very much have a trauma-informed led approach to this. And so we're trying to find a comfortable way to talk about a serious event with our stakeholders prior to the emergency ever happening. And what we liken it unto is the development and readiness that we have for stop, drop, and roll, right? And we compare the fact that we can teach kindergartners how to put themselves out when they're on fire, without the need to traumatize them, without the need for fear, with just a willingness to imply some gamification concepts. And really in this academic environment, that's what we want to challenge those professors and those leaders who are very proactive in reaching out to us to ensure that their groups that they're responsible for and involved with are privy to this information. So moving on, the next portion of this would be our response, and that would include the tactical training that we go through, the incident command training that we go through, interagency all the while. Here at USC, being that we're a private university, the education code allows us to work via a memorandum of understanding with the Los Angeles Police Department, provided all of our officers have the same training. We report through them to our general counsel. And so general counsel reports to the police commission, and that's kind of our multi-hat, multi-tiered flow. But with that comes this dependency to be able to work with the Los Angeles Police Department, the Los Angeles Sheriff's Department, and the fire department as well. Advances in this area have allowed us to integrate with the fire department, who traditionally won't go into an area that is unsafe. If we provide protection for them, we can bring them into areas that are declared warm so that we can start rendering aid more quickly. And that interoperability, both with the fire department and with our neighboring law enforcement agencies, is why we have our annual live exercise, which as of this year is going to be 2 per year, because as some of you may and some of you may not know, we have 2 primary campus areas, one being the University Park campus here in South LA, and the other being our medical enterprise at the Health Sciences campus in East LA. And we'll be bringing our first live exercise to that campus this year. So we're excited about that. So the biggest component in terms of preparedness and prevention really is how well do we track threats? And for USC, it's been a primary focal point since 2013, when we had a grad student murder professor on campus in one of our buildings. At that point is when we really brought in a concerted effort towards developing a robust threat assessment program. Now, the Office of Threat Assessment and Management is actually housed outside of DPS or outside of the police department, which is not the standard practice, but a very effective approach to this, because it allows for more integration. As was mentioned previously, people don't always feel comfortable coming right to the uniforms or to the law enforcement representative and sharing information. And that even applies to other departments. And we know, especially within the university environment, that there's a lot of siloing that takes place. So there's a lot of information housed separately. It's really about integrating, developing relationships, and having a more holistic approach. At the end of the day, our approach is based on this knowledge. It's that happy, well-adjusted, and connected individuals don't go on to become a threat to us, whether it be any type of violence. And so our goal then is to reframe this can we have a culture of care where we don't feel like we're reporting the person who we want to remove from our society in order to keep us safe, but rather how early can we recognize that somebody might be facing crisis? And then can we pass it to a group that can ensure follow-up will take place, case management, that we're making accessible the right resources. As was mentioned before, people don't always feel comfortable reporting to the police. Maybe you don't feel comfortable reporting to HR. There's a lot of reasons why that secondary reporting doesn't take place. And so what we've brought in is this initiative, Trojans Care for Trojans. And what that allows us to do is provide an anonymous reporting platform so that even if you're not sure what's going on and you don't quite know how to articulate it, but you know something's there, we've given you a resource to utilize that doesn't over knee-jerk in terms of a reaction and perhaps get a person into trouble when all you really wanted to do was provide help. So in the course of our presentations and our training that we do for the university, we follow essentially the SEPTED model, the crime prevention through environmental design, to highlight, point out, and articulate two primary things. One are escape options, and two are defensible spaces. And for us, this is the foundation of every emergency plan. We'd like to challenge each group, even though they may not be perfect and obvious solutions, to start with finding 3 exit options and 3 defensible spaces. So if you had the perfect scenario and all the time in the world, and you had to stay in your building, where would it be most comfortable and most secure to move people to? Now, again, the trick for us is getting that buy-in and engaging. And what we find is that by using this approach, capturing images of their site, using floor plans to highlight what that flow of either escape or seeking shelter might look like, it really engages more, it gets a greater level of buy-in, and it's been very effective for us. We have the fortune of having a very robust fire safety and emergency planning department that works with each department to ensure that their emergency plans are up to speed and that they're reviewed annually. And so all of this culminates for us really in our annual exercise, wherein the departments that we're touching are able to exercise their emergency plans. We get to exercise our interoperability, and the communication exercise, I mean, it doesn't even need to be mentioned. It's through the roof in terms of the opportunity it provides us at all levels. So moving on, when we train with LAPD, we send those that we put through the academy through LA's police academy. And then those that lateral over or come to us being self-sponsored through the academy, we ensure that everybody has a fundamental level of training. LAPD now calls it, and again, it has different iterations and variations through the years, especially in my 25 years, but immediate action, rapid deployment, really getting into a building quickly when there's a threat that is active, ensuring that we're doing it as safely as possible without delay, understanding when we go into slow and methodical and when it's time to move as quickly as possible to a threat to engage. What's developed out of this is MACTAC, multi-assault counter-terrorism action capabilities, forgive me, which really is just the same concept on a grander scale. We go through mental health intervention training with them, and then, of course, rescue task force training, which integrates the fire department as well. We utilize our FBI partners for crisis negotiation training and for alert training, which is the last couple of years, kind of the latest iteration of law enforcement training for active shooter response. And the fact that they make it accessible to create your own instructors is just, it's a great resource. We have developed a crisis intervention team wherein each member has at a minimum crisis negotiation basic training, as well as mental health intervention training. Of course, de-escalation training, arrest and control capabilities, trauma-informed care. All of this goes hand in hand to our approach and how we want to build our relationship and partnerships going forward. We recognize that when we deal with somebody, we're going to have repeat encounters with them. It's very likely. Also, speaking to what Tom had mentioned, we recognize, and our threat assessment team is very robust, very experienced. They know that there is a sphere of reporting and of knowledge wherein we have people willing to report and people who justify a behavior that they're seeing. Getting our community to understand that we want to focus upon behaviors, concerning behaviors, having a very low threshold on what we'll investigate and follow up on, early signs of possible impending crisis, whether it be emotional at home. We realize that the 4 levels of threats, The majority of our concerns are going to have some relationship with the university, but are likely going to be in that category 3 and 4. So again, early intervention, close follow-up. There is no concerning behavior that we would consider to be too small in order to follow up upon. And we recognize that, as was indicated previously, people can have concerning behavior as far out as 2 years in advance of any action that they may carry out. So recognizing that, being able to provide the resources to follow up on that, and then trying to engage our community to, one, realize that the resource is there, 2, develop some sort of trust that it's there for the right reason, and 3, use it, share it, spread the word. So in the end of the day, we're trying to ensure the diverse experiences and needs of all of our communities, students, staff, faculty, and our neighbors. This is part of our One USC safety vision. And our active shooter live exercise really helps us bring that together. I will keep us within our time frame here so that we can have a little bit more time for our Q&A. But again, I thank you for my time, and that's all I have for my official presentation.
Thank you, Ralph. Really appreciate it. This is a time to enter your questions so that I can discuss it with our experts. But while I'm waiting for questions to pop up, perhaps I can say that it appears, gentlemen, that the theme of the day, even in active shooting, is plan, prepare, practice, and evaluate, as I said, for cybersecurity. Is that a fair assessment?
Absolutely.
Yeah, 100%. In the chat box, I just plugged a resource in there just on an FBI website that's got a tremendous amount of resources for planning for active shooting preparation and whatnot. Some pretty good videos in there too. My mother lives back in Virginia, and she is a part of the security team at a larger church back in Virginia. And she was interested recently in putting together a preparation plan for potential active shooting. And I referred her to this website and linked her up with some folks back in Virginia. So the resources are out there. And talking to folks like myself or Sergeant Roselli, if there's any training that anybody wants in the future, we could help point you in the right direction for that.
Absolutely.
That's very helpful. Ralph, also at USC, perhaps using the University of Texas model, we began a program, I think it's called MHeart. If you can comment on that, because prevention appears to be an important component of this, and mental health, of course, is part and parcel of what these folks unfortunately are suffering from. I don't know of any person who acts normal and has no mental health issues going around and shooting people, but talk about MHeart a little bit, because that's a great way perhaps to prevent.
Yes, absolutely. And you're correct. We did follow that model. It's an integration between our crisis intervention team and then our crisis counselors that are housed within USC. And so the goal is to bring those resources, those experts out into the field so that we can start the care process as early as possible. Now, the current version of this finds that we have kind of business hours access to our counselors. We are with the exception of one who has just acquired their LPS status, but that's the goal, is to be able to write 5150 holds from within our own environment without having to rely too heavily upon the Los Angeles Police Department, and to also ensure that we can provide that high level of care that we're trying to throughout this ordeal. So MHeart is the mental health assistance and response team. It integrates trained crisis counselors with trained officers specifically for dealing with crises, and partners them up in responding to the field for calls involving students only at this point, in order to bring forth access, continuity of care, and to really ensure that we are following through on our vision of the One USC safety vision.
Gentlemen, any recommendations as to where folks can get mental health intervention training?
The National Association of Mental Health Intervention, I believe, is what it stands for. And it's a good starting point for local resources as well.
And one thing I wanted to mention on that is there's been a great shift in the law enforcement community over the past several years. regarding being more involved on the mental health side of things. I know down here in Orange County, the Sheriff's Department has created a mental health bureau, and we meet with several local police departments once a month, and we have a meeting regarding individuals in our area that are of great concern, that are maybe criminal activity related to mental health. And we're really trying to take huge initiatives and work with Orange County Mental Health and other departments to get them the help that they need so that they're not arrested and get put in the typical criminal, put into the jails and kind of going in the typical line of what a criminal would be, because they need mental health treatment. And we're really taking an initiative to try to move that forward. And that goes on what Sergeant Roselli was saying there with the MHEART program too.
I think a lot of training at USC refers to run, hide, and fight. Ralph, if you can comment on that aspect of it a little bit as well. Some people are confused about the topic, but we get training on that. I'm in the leadership of my school, so we recently got training again on the topic. So Ralph, run, hide, fight.
Absolutely. So this was really an acronym that was developed just to kind of simplify what some of the decision points would be in an emergency such as this. It's not meant to be linear so much as it is to capture what types of decisions might have to be made. And again, this is our goal too when we provide this training, is to clarify exactly what does this mean. We've heard it often espoused through the media or repeated, but practically, what does it mean and what does it look like? So that's part of our goal, is to break it down. Run essentially means, do you have the capability, a route to escape a threat? And part of that is knowing where that threat is. So if you don't know where something is, you can't escape from it. And understanding that this is all part of the decision-making process. When we talk about hiding, what we're talking about is preventing a threat from reaching you. And the best friend you have for that would be a locked door. So knowing the capabilities of your doors, the locking mechanisms, how do they function? Is it electronic access? These are the things that we need to be aware of within our surroundings. Again, something that we focus on, encouraging that knowledge and familiarity. And last is this idea of fighting. Run, hide, fight. Most people view it as a last resort, but what we really want to share and impart is that every person who's ever successfully fought against an armed assailant in a situation like this has always done the same thing. They've imagined it first. What would I do? What would it be like? Can I go down this road? Because I can't put my physical body there. I've got to allow my mind, while I'm safe, to be able to explore this so I can get some feedback in case I'm ever actually faced with it. And therein comes that gamification concept. So we're constantly challenging academia here to become part of this solution. How can you find a way to convey this idea that we need to know how to lock doors, we need to know how to escape if it comes to that, and what are reasonable, reliable ways that we can fight? What is a tool? Where do you want to do it from? And if we can take it to something we call the boo game, which is something we've all done, you got into a door before a sibling or a friend, you turned the corner and you just waited to say surprise, boo, just to get that shock reaction, and showing them that that's the connection on recognizing where one wants to fight from. So that every time you enter a room, you're not traumatizing yourself thinking that's where the assailant might be, but rather you're looking for your friend, you're looking for a loved one that you might scare anyway, and you're starting to learn some of these areas.
Indeed. Gentlemen, thank you very much. We're out of time at this point, and a perfect example of fight, I presume, was recently displayed in Monterey Park, who saved a lot of lives. Thank you for that. And both Tom and Ralph, really appreciate you